Hey everybody, this is Evan with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today I'm going to be bringing you a review here of Firelock Games' Blood and Valor. So Blood and Valor is a World War I skirmish style game for 28mm. I'm going to take you down to the table, kind of show you the things that are inside this book, bring you back up and give you my final thoughts on it. Alright everybody, so down here onto the table, we're going to be taking a look at Firelock Games' Blood and Valor. So this is a 28mm miniature game. It's a skirmish style game that is set during World War I. So really nice hard copy, really cool. Very nicely laid out. So you're going to have here, and as you can see, one of the things I'm going to talk about, this book contains force lists for all of these here, which takes up a good portion of this book. But if you're familiar with World War I, these are a lot of the major powers that existed and were used into this game and in the different fronts that were fought during World War I. So you're going to have a lot of options to build your forces in here. So one really cool thing here that I really liked is right before World War I, what the world was actually like at that point, who was aligned to what. And then we got our credits and our introduction page here. Table of contents labeled here to the front, which is always very nice. And here I'll show you into the very back. Also, there is a nice little index here. So for a quick reference, if you need to double check anything, nice player aids here at the very back also. Then they have a little advertisements and some tokens here into the back. Notes if you want to make notes, which I always find it is an odd thing. No knock onto the manufacturers about that, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually put notes in the notes section, but, you know, to each their own if you do. But, as I said, table of contents here. As you can see, and it's laid out here, we get into the force list here at 39, and we really start at page 7, 9 is kind of the introduction, the chronological. So the game, the rules really don't start till 13. So 13 to about 35 is the core of the rules. And as you're going to see as I flip through this, you're going to have a lot of pictures that are going to be laid out here. Oh, sorry about the glare, but there you go. Some really neat pictures that go along with this. So it's the rules aren't heavy at all for this game, and they're laid out in a way that is super easy to learn. You're going to see as I flip through this. So introduction here is just talking about, you know, the basis of the game, and then the chronology. There we go, of World War I. So they broke that down by the years of everything that's going on. So if you're just semi-familiar, this will kind of give you a good point to kind of see everything that really happened. Everything from the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand all the way to the Treaty of Versailles right there. So kind of the high points of everything that happened. And then right now we're into the game essentials. Right this. So what I really like is this broken down by 3 point whatever. So chapter 3, game essentials, point whatever is what we're looking at. And bam, all laid out like this. So it is very nicely laid out this way. For someone that, like myself, that has attention problems, with our ADHD or ADD, sometimes sitting and reading and comprehending the rules and getting them to stick takes 3 or 4 times to read them when you're into, you know, books that just have them all laid out. When it's broken down to smaller sections like that, sometimes it is easier to comprehend and absorb it for people like me. And I really like how that's laid out. So I can do this in like that. You know, that's everything for, you know, chapter 3. I could absorb that, and it's broken down nicely into small things that if I do miss something or I can't remember something, I can easily find and go back to what didn't stick. So chapter 4, we're talking about the game turns. So this game uses a round bidding system, which if you're familiar with some of the other Firelock games systems, it works very similarly. Unit actions, and then again, chapter is very short. We're into the next one. Terrain is very important, much like a lot of their games. Again, very short, and into range combat. So a lot of the shooting. How is it working? Broken down range belts, line of sights, how you figure that out. And then there are different types. So some things only have arcs, some don't. So there you go, all broken down to this page in a very nice chart. Barrages, like artillery barrages, how this would work. Again, broken down here, 6.2. close combat, when you get into melee, charging, done. Real simple and really easy to learn. Now we're into Chapter 8, which is the Force List, which this is how it breaks down, sorry. Any special rules, and then you're going to get the actual list. So the lists are really, really nicely, easily laid out. So if you're going to go for the British Army, here's an example force list and the different things here. So what command team do I want? Do I need one of their lieutenants? Do I want a major? Do I want to have J.R.R. Tolkien? Because why not? And again, flip it. Here's their core units, support units, and move on. Now we're getting into Australia and New Zealand, the Anzac. Here's all the layout. Commanders, special commanders, core units, support, and again, into the next one. As you can see here into the corners here, if you need a quick reference to find them. And it's going to repeat all the way through here, and there's a lot of different options all through that. Now, Chapter 10, if you watch a couple of the other miniature books, these are basically how am I going to choose a scenario, what am I going to do, here's the rules of how you would deploy, the rules for specific games, and how you can do that. Now, Chapter 12 here talks about the tanks in World War I, and I'm going to say tanks, because they're effectively armored tractors, but this is the tank basics of how they worked. Now, all the different types of tanks have different firing arcs on them because they have machine guns and heavy guns, and they're all over the place and all sorts of weird stuff going on with them. But they do have them laid out in there, so you can have, the British marks and whatnot index again into the end. And the back cover. Really, really nice book. Really, really happy that I got a chance to check it out. And get to mess around with this. I'm going to bring you up from the table and give you my final thoughts here of Blood and Valor. So Firelock's Blood and Valor. So I thought this was really, really cool. There are not a lot of Great War games out there that aren't these super huge grand campaign style games, and they're more in line of board game as opposed to tabletop game. So finding something that is 28mm in the Great War, you're not going to find it until now. Firelock does a great job with their miniature line. And by miniature line, I more mean into the rule books, because they don't really have a specific line for like the other stuff like Blood and Steel. Blood and Plunder has its own specific miniature line that goes with that, and they do a great job with that. Blood and Valor itself, the rules are based off of the Blood and Plunder line that they did, and specifically the rules itself. Really, really well laid out. If you're familiar with their system, you're going to pick this up really, really quickly. And if you're not familiar with the system, this is laid out really well. It's not rules heavy, and you're going to get going and playing the game very fast. A lot of fun if you're into the Great War and you want to try a skirmish style game. Pick this up, you will not regret that. But until later, this is Evan with Tabletop Gaming Guild. Have a good night.